This video has come about because of a spot of bother I encountered while trying to assemble this paddle engine I'm trying to make. I don't throw anything away, I just don't, and it includes sort of odd bits of steel cut off from things I've been making, and there's similar boxes of knob ends of brass and who knows what really, because you never know when you're going to want a small bit. I also never throw away, ever, cap head screws among other things, and indeed cap head bolts. And this is just a miscellaneous selection, probably got some of it in car boot sales. I've never found a use for them to attach anything to anything else as such, but I quite often find when I'm erecting some of the model engines that I make that the shop bought, I'll call them nut runners, I think that's the name, these are proprietary nut runners, are too long, and sometimes they're also a bit big for restricted spaces. So on a couple of them, three of them here, I've turned the ends down, still leaving, because there's no great force required to tighten these sort of things up, so that I can get them into wherever I need to go. This is an example of a homemade nut runner where I've used a very small, and I don't know what it is at the moment, cap head screw, screwed into another knob of steel to make a nut runner for a particular job in history, and I can't think what it was, but anyway, handy. But I often find that the proprietary nut runners are too long, and I'm certainly finding that on this paddle steaming engine I've been making, too long to get into restricted spaces, and what you actually need are shorter ones. Now, it's for sure I could cut these down, but I'm reluctant to do that because you can actually use cap head screws, suitably turned down and fiddled about with, to make shortened nut runners, and you don't destroy anything in the process. So currently for this paddle steamer I find that I've got a couple of 5BA studs where the proprietary 5BA nut runner is far too long. I can't get in with it, so I've used one of my cap heads, turned it down, used one of my knob ends of steel, drilled a quarter of an inch, turned the cap head screw a quarter of an inch, Loctite the two together to make a shortened, in this case 5BA nut runner. There's the proprietary one, this is the one I've just made, and it's to fit this 5BA stud screw that's got to go into a slightly inaccessible position on the paddle steamer engine. So there you are, and you can make as many of these as you like, of course, depending on your collection of cap head screws and cap head bolts, all sorts really, from nothing really. Appeals to my sense of reusing things. You could, I suppose, silver solder the cap head screw into whatever holder you just made if you wanted to, but I always just Loctite them together, 603, the retaining compound. And as I say, these are low torque applications. I've never had one fail or let go yet, and in this particular case there is the screw that this thing is intended to assemble. Jolly good. While I'm on the subject of nut runners and related topics, the other thing I do when I need to is to drill and tap the end of the nut runners, and this looks to be drilled and tapped, I don't know, 7 or 8 BA for some, so that I can use the end to run studs into cylinders and things, which is quite handy sometimes. The screwdriver slot it's got nothing to do with driving studs. The screwdriver slot was sawed in because for whatever I was doing with this one, this runner wasn't actually long enough, and I needed to get a screwdriver on the end to presumably screw a nut in somewhere that I couldn't get my fat fingers in to reach that, so cut a slot and a screwdriver. This is an example of where the homemade nut runner's handy. There's a couple of 5BA studs here, and I can't get my fat fingers in, and take my word for it, it was convenient to erect the link motion first, and I can't get my fingers in to do these studs up. So my homemade nut runner job is the bee's knees, for just putting them in the holes and tightening them up. Like I say, they don't have to be done up with the strength of Garth, just enough to be fit for purpose.